one more. Where is he? Says she just saw him, so.
Or else it was somebody that looked just like Tim who thought to wave at me.
That would be a coincidence. So in the meantime, those of us who haven't had a chance to do it, take a look at the agenda and the meeting minutes. And so that we're able to go ahead and adopt those as soon as Molly gets here.
We're meeting on Friday, right?
Yes.
And we're doing that at your office?
We're doing it here.
Oh, that's right.
Which is basically just Kyle's office, really.
Pretty close. Considering I run here half the time for the day.
Sitting here for so much.
Hey, Lloyd.
So nice.
Have a seat.
Hey, good, how are you?
Okay.
Take over your stuff.
Hey, Levon.
Good.
We do now. Okay, let's get started.
Printer's jammed, so.
Oh, okay.
Gotta really have this stuff, you know.
We,
Well, good thing
we're
Alan-
doing our best.
Did Alan make copies?
I don't know. I have
Well-
10 copies.
Okay,
Yep.
so we're going to go ahead and get started. We all have our meeting minutes and our agendas in front of us. Everybody could quickly run through the meeting minutes and the agenda and let me know if there are any substantive changes. And Roy, unless you have changes, I think everybody's had a chance to look through. Okay, so I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So we have mentions.
Nope.
Then I'm going to approve the agenda.
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor with a show of hands and an eye? Aye. All opposed? Agenda is approved. And I'd entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our May meeting.
So moved.
All in favor with a show of hands and an eye? Aye. And the meeting minutes are approved. Thank you. Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks to you all for being here. I'm Kyle Bessie. This is the June meeting of the Human Rights Commission, and just to open it up, I'd like to go around the table, have everybody introduce themselves, then have those in the audience introduce themselves as well. Let's start on that side of the table today with John.
John Pursuit.
Jeff Selby.
Amy Samara?
Diallo Bennett. Alan Lazo.
Kyle Bessie.
Lloyd Good.
Christine Ratzlaff?
Linda McKimbell, Human Rights Committee volunteer.
Thank you, Linda.
Mike Tabor, filming and putting it on joeanybody.com.
Hey, Mike.
Dante James, Office of Equity and Human Rights.
Alana Easter, Portland Commission on Disability.
Sarah Mel Iron, Equity Intern for Living Portlander Program.
Welcome. Thank you all for being here. Okay. Are you? So we have 7? Yeah, we're good. Okay. So our first item on the agenda is for Dante James to join us at the table. Welcome. You can sit,
Thank you.
wherever Mike can see you.
About right here.
Perfect.
Good afternoon. Nothing major to report from my side, but for, I guess, the most major, which is the Office of Equity and Human Rights is now officially and completely within the office, within the portfolio of the mayor's office. And I have yet to meet with the mayor since the Appointments went out. I am scheduled to meet with him on the 17th. But I will be meeting with the office's liaison, who is Josh Alpert. I've met with Josh a couple of times previously, and so he's going to continue to be the liaison for this office. And he's very, very supportive of what we do and how we do it. And so I'm looking forward to enlarging that relationship and also getting a good sense from the mayor himself about how he sees the work of the office and the work in totality of the office, which would include HRC. And that's about it on that regard. One other piece of information is, as of Monday, we went live with our new website. We were able to now migrate to the new platform that the city is using for its websites. And so we've come out of what looked like the Stone Ages, and I think we have a really, really, really nice website. So take a look at it. Thanks to Jeff for all of his hard work and really putting that together and continuing to make that our media and communications piece really, really well done. So
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, it looks really good. Anybody who hasn't had a chance to look at it yet, it's very nice. And I actually went to Facebook.
yeah, Facebook page is really, really, it's excellent because it's very much a living document. It's a living page, and so it's constantly updated with not just information from our office, but other partners and agencies and organizations around the city that are doing good work. So take a look at that. If you haven't friended it, like it, whatever it is you're supposed to do with it. And,
We'll change it.
So you use it a lot. is that
Yes,
what
yeah,
you're saying?
yeah. So I encourage you to take a look.
Thank you.
Questions for me, or am I missing anything, or can it be offering thoughts on anything you might be interested in?
Do you have any perspective on, now that this office has been appointed to be under the mayor, how we might proceed to what appropriate next steps for the commissioners, human rights commissioners it might be?
What I would suggest reaching out to Josh as our liaison. He may or may not be the person who wants to be or will be a liaison for the HRC. But I think I saw in the meeting from last time where I wasn't here, the HRC is considering having a liaison to each of the bureau directors. I would certainly.
Or commissioners, or city.
Commissioners, I'm sorry, for each of the commissioners, and so I would certainly suggest that same for the mayor's office. So I may in fact start with Josh and maybe make a meeting or just see what his thoughts are, and then suggest us proceed from there. I think it's probably the best approach.
Christine, was your question around nominations?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
But I think if you want to ask that question, that would be a good one.
Oh, I've been assuming that Jeff has forwarded our nominations on to go through that process now that it's.
No, they have to meet with the mayor first.
Oh, that's what I mean, so
Right.
but you started that process with, now that we know it's the mayor's office,
Right.
they have to go through the mayor's office.
And he may, I think I don't know if he officially will want to meet or not. I'm not sure what his expected process is. But he'll get the names and the choice will be his, and we can go from there.
And I've spoken to Josh about the nomination process in the process of especially John's appointment. And so he is definitely in favor of getting these things moving along. And I've also spoken to him about the liaison relationships, and he's in favor of that. So I think that'll be a pretty smooth transition for us. He's already expressed his desire to establish that relationship. So yeah, so he should be somebody that's pretty easy to interface with pretty quickly.
And do we have any idea whether the mayor has, kind of thoughts on HRC and how he envisions HRC and our strategic plan and things like that? I mean, how is this being handled?
Well, I haven't spoken to the mayor. I've only spoken to Josh.
So through Josh first and then.
Yeah, and when I did speak to Josh, it was more of an introduction. I haven't shared the strategic plan with him. That's something that and we'll talk about the city hall liaisons a little bit later. But in the course of that relationship, I think that's an issue that's gonna start coming up, and we'll build our relationship from that
Right,
framework.
yeah. I think we probably want to get out ahead of it.
Yeah, well, we were waiting for the bureau assignments to be made before the liaison assignments were made.
Mhm.
And so now that we have them, that's something that those of us that have volunteered to do the liaison thing have all
Okay,
been
cool.
together. So, yeah, but you're right, it's something we gotta get on top of. All right, anything else for Dante? Okay.
Thanks, Dante.
Thank you very much.
See you.
Okay, so, time to give us our marching orders for the Human Rights Roundtable, June 26th.
Okay, well, I'll put the marching orders on the top. Dale has made copies. Okay, one will go that way. The one page is for all of you, and then we've just got 5 or so
Yeah, so if you don't want one, pass it along.
for the other. I need one of those.
What is it?
So the one that reads roundtable agenda, there is enough for everybody. Actually, with who's here, there's probably enough for everybody. So that-
And if there are extras, let's put them on the end there so that anybody in the public area can grab one. And if we're sharing out there, if we can maybe just share with each other if we don't have enough, that would be great. Thank you.
It's very simple.
Can I share with you? Oh, yeah.
You have
Sure. Okay, so I guess I'll start with invitation, or where we are with who's coming. Myra prepared a list of all the organizations that we have contacted or are about to contact. Some of those we're catching up with, because we haven't had a phone number or an email address, or they just came onto our radar the past few days. So if you're interested, that's where we're at. And as of this morning, there were 12 organizations signed up and 18 individuals signed up. And as we're communicating by phone, follow-up to folks this week, and we're gonna do another round next week. We're also hearing from a number of organizations, at least 5, I'd say, that are interested in coming. They're just getting themselves together and trying to figure out who are they gonna ask to attend of the organization. So, and we've also extended the deadline for registration from June 7th to the 17th. And we're aware that our deadline to make purchases is the 17th with Jeff through the credit card of OAHR. So we're gonna be navigating that and making sure that we get our catering and AV, if needed, requests in before that. So by the 12th, we'll make a gauge as to how many people we're gonna need to attend to.
You sent me an email about the AV.
Yeah.
I was able to check, if they do take credit cards.
I'm assuming so, but I'll double check.
Yeah, and then, you also need to know about how much it'll be.
I gave you a maximum.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, it won't be more than that.
And so you said 18 individuals and 12 organizations have already RSVP'd that they're coming?
Yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. So
And then 5 additional organizations, so you think?
that we've been told verbally they want to, they just haven't gotten around to pressing the button.
That's great.
I think so. It's definitely worth doing.
Oh, yeah.
And it looks like there'll be more people there than human rights commissioners, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good benchmark.
I don't remember who it was, but someone posted on Facebook today, the invitation.
I was wondering if that would happen.
Yeah,
So we decided to make it let it go public, because not the event, but the invitation. Because there was some clunkiness around people not being able to RSVP. So,
Show it to their office.
yeah. So, I was concerned that letting it go public would have people, even though we sent out a letter saying this is invitation only, and the page on the Eventbrite itself says this is invitation only. So it sounds like we need to do a little troubleshooting with that. Now, still, when they RSVP, they need to fill out a form that says what policy issues are you working on within human rights, and name their organization. So hopefully if people get that far, they'll recognize. But we were just concerned that it was deterring people for them to have to use their specific email to RSVP. And that's part of the thing that we've learned a lot about, is how that we didn't, I think I'd like to take responsibility for going fancy and with the Eventbrite, thinking that it would be more efficient for us, less hands-on for us, and you had just joined us, so it wasn't clear, how we would partner with that. But in the end, I think the Eventbrite has served to be less accessible than we wanted to. So save all that for, hashing out later, but that's why it ended up on Facebook, I guess.
Well, it's a good learning experience.
Well, there's a share button, I think, on the invitation that allows you to share.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I don't think it's a bad thing.
Well, and if people, there is a chance that people will just see a date, see an event and show up, have some extra shares.
No, I guess that was my question, do we have a strategy if that happens? So maybe at the registration desk, you should have those same forms available, and so that people, if they come from an organization that didn't RSVP, they could be brought through that process. I don't know if that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and have, clear communication about what's happening at this event, which organizations is it relevant to, and we're planning more public events later that are gonna be to a broader audience.
Yeah.
Can we get your name on that list for those events?
I think it's actually a good thing to have more people interested.
Uh-huh.
And
And someone
if
was
it
interested
turns
enough
out.
to put it on Facebook.
Right, exactly. So I think it's actually exciting that that's happening. And then if we just have a little bit of a contingent plan for when people do show up, like what Alan said, I think it's great. It would be great to capture that information. And then to have, have some chairs stacked up in the back so that if we have extra people, we just see them, and that'd be great. I'll give them my food.
Are you hoping to have people representing organizations though, solely? So if it goes viral, what's the plan for people coming that aren't affiliated with any organizations?
Really, I think that's kind of what we was just talking about, as far as making sure that when they come into the actual event, that they can just sign their name, and if they're not an organization, that we tell them that there's gonna be more events later.
Do you still include them in the event?
I think that if they're an organization, yeah.
No, not if they're not an organization, if they just show up as a kind of community member.
Just a question, we have to understand whether or not this is a public meeting too. We're all looking at the warrants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it will be.
So that means we can't exclude people.
Good point.
Well, and I think we wouldn't want to. I think
Yeah,
even
I don't think so either.
if they're an individual and it's not necessarily the point.
I just want to point out it was the accountant who brought this up and not the two lawyers.
Well, I think though that you risk getting off track.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really good point, Alan, if it's a public meeting and how we handle that.
So we have to make
Well,
sure
I
we
mean-
get notices out too.
Are you going to be discussing business of the commission? I don't think so.
Not as a
Not
committee.
necessarily.
I mean, then the awards luncheon would have been a public meeting too.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's,
But you didn't discuss commission business at the luncheon.
well, the difference I would see is the awards luncheon was just about, saying congratulations, we appreciate all the work these people have done. This is about helping us shape the work we're going to do. So it's more of a, we're trying to learn through it.
Okay.
And that, to me, is slightly different.
Yeah, it does sound-
Okay, so we'll have meeting minutes, we'll have to post an agenda, and all of that.
I think to err on the safe side, it would be a good idea to do that.
Okay. So the people who are invited, then,
But I think there are meeting minutes, because there's captions.
That's part of it.
yeah, but I mean, as far as announcing, you have to announce the meeting, so.
Okay, so does that mean that we can't have event only, or invite only?
No, you can't invite only, it's just, what I'm saying is just like this meeting, we can't exclude people from watching the meeting, viewing the meeting, we don't have to allow them to participate.
Okay.
Right, I mean, that's the public meeting laws. It has to be open to the public, but that doesn't mean that there's a participation factor.
So I'm, sorry, go ahead.
So somebody could come and sit at one of the tables, I'm just not sure if you want to tell them that they can't speak.
Right, or our communication can be this, the roundtables are set up for, organizations working on policy issues with human rights, and we have an observing area, an
Yeah.
attending area with, outside
Chairs
of those
outside.
tables.
For individuals.
For individuals, yeah.
And that's how it would
That's a good
handle.
idea.
Yeah, I don't think we need to say they can't speak. It's not about speaking. I think it's about properly communicating what the forum is and how it's gonna operate. But it's not an open mic session.
Do we need to have a public comment period? Is that part of those?
So I think so.
We should check.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you.
time for public comment maybe.
I don't think that it would, I think that it might even be beneficial.
Does it have to be time or can it just be a?
Yeah, you can set the parameters.
Yeah, you
Can it
can,
just be a media like this?
5 minutes.
Or even a comment card that you can fill out that's public?
Anybody show something.
that's.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be oral comment, if they take the time to show it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, is maybe it doesn't have to be oral, it could be a public
Public
comment
comment
card.
via.
So that's, I mean, that's something to look into with the city attorney, just to make sure that we're
Well,
giving, yeah, I think running this conversation by the city attorney is a good idea. Here's what we're doing. This is the idea. There's a chance that people may just show up. What does that mean for us? What does it mean? What does this event mean for us as far as notice, public comment, and minutes and agenda goes?
Well, we should have comment cards anyway, and that covers the public comment part of it, but yeah, I will run it through Tracy.
Okay, it's good, yeah, because we might as well just,
Yeah, the thing is,
Summarize.
public comment has to be oral.
Has to be what?
It doesn't have to be oral.
Yeah, we are planning to prep a facilitation, an evaluation form, so it could go alongside that.
Or it could just be part of it.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
No,
So yeah, I think it'd be a good idea to just run it by Tracy.
thank you.
Thank you for that, yeah. Okay.
Okay, so that's invitations, who's coming and who's not. And then format, I just jotted some notes down. There's the agenda there for you guys, and it hasn't changed very much since we showed it to you last month. In conversation with Kyle, he was encouraging that we get through our presentation sooner than later, so we can have more time for feedback from organizations. And I think that was a great idea, so things have been adjusted. So there's 20 minutes right now for us to talk, and I think that's generous. I don't think we're gonna need that much time. And HRC roles, Myra sent an email to you guys about this. We're hoping folks can arrive by 5:15. If not 5 o'clock, we'll be there by 5 setting up or confirming the setups good. And so we're hoping to have some greeters, particularly now that it looks like we're gonna have this open to the public. Someone at registration desk, probably 2, and then table hosts. So this hasn't changed so much since we've talked last about it either, but we're hoping to have 1 rep from an organization at each table doing facilitation, and then have an HRC member serving as listener, providing clarification about what HRC does, our purpose and capacity. And, right now, we've got 18 people coming, so this is in hopes and expectation that we're gonna have a larger group, that we'll have maybe 30 or more. So, we're working on a plan B if we don't get that many more people. And so what you see in front of you is really, really close to how it's gonna be, you know, pending, the numbers not being as high as we hope. Any questions about that?
Just want to add that Sarah, who's been interning with Polo in the Portland program, is also very interested in what this group is doing. And she's going to check on her availability to see if she can help out that night.
Great.
Thank you, Sarah.
She's just finding out about this now, is what I'm saying. No, she said she could check her availability, so.
Cool. Thank you very much. The only thing I would say, and this is a part of the larger conversation I think that we're gonna have later about focusing on our strategic plan, is that I think it would be helpful for everybody to be on the same page about what we're going to say when somebody asks about our mission, purpose, and capacity. I mean, we can sure read our mission to somebody, and I think that is, obviously, that's our mission, what the code says our mission is. But I think that it would be helpful to have an understanding about what that message is going to be during the event, and not just have it be us reading our mission statement. And so I don't know if that's something that we need to hash out right this minute, but it's certainly something that I think we should have agreed upon by the time this event takes place. And maybe we do need to figure that out. I don't think it's something we really need to vote on, so I don't necessarily think we need to be right here to do it, but it's definitely something that I think we should be armed with, so that there aren't mixed messages being presented at the roundtable. Anybody want to talk about that? Or?
I think getting 13 people to agree on one particular message is going to be a bit hard.
Well, you have to.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is hard, and it's hard
Not
to
the same verbiage or the method, but it has to be the same, you know, it can't be something completely different.
Right, like we're gonna, like, give me all your problems and we're gonna go solve them for you on one side, and then, well, we don't have the jurisdiction to address that issue on the other side, may be confusing to people, and so just to, I think, generally have an idea of how we're gonna respond when somebody says, well, do you have the capacity to do this? Well, yeah, I think generally.
And also,
I think we figured it out.
There you go. That's the answer.
and also.
But just so everybody's clear.
Right. Also about the mission, I mean, you know, I joined and this was the mission, and just some feelings that I and I've heard from other people is that eliminating bigotry is almost impossible. And to try to eliminate that is almost violating somebody's free speech, and you don't know who's, then if you do that, then you don't know who's the bigot in the room, and you can't really have a discussion happening afterward. And so I think that we should talk about the mission in general.
Yeah, I think that that's something that we can revisit for sure.
Yeah,
We're gonna be
that's
talking
now.
about our strategic plan and work plan and move forward in those things as we evolve.
I would just say that if we're not going to talk about it now, then we need to set a time to talk about it.
The mission itself.
This issue you're talking about, like what we're going to say.
I'm wondering, Kyle, if you might be able to, in your opening remarks, if you were to set that tone, if you gave that message, and then essentially that is the message that we have. And so any HRC commissioner that's at a table, all we're doing is reinforcing the message that you have put out at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah, and bullets from that can be available in print, so it's more clear.
I think that's a great idea, and what I can do is put that together and then distribute it before the roundtable, so that if there is a major objection to what I've put together, then somebody can say that beforehand. But I think it'll be pretty, I hope it would be acceptable. But yeah, I think that's a great idea, and that's what I'll do.
That's awesome.
Okay, and that gets into, we did talk about that in the context of parameters last month, and that helps shape the guideline questions, oops, not guidelines for questions, but guidelines for, conversation at the roundtables. So as people are mulling over those questions at the roundtables, that is gonna be in the, providing context for particularly that last question. And another suggestion that Kyle made that I think is a really good one is that we want to make this really more loose, rather than a specific. We want you to report on every bullet point here, that same question. And these, how set in stone are these questions? I think these are pretty close, and again, it's gonna depend on how many people show up at the event and what kind of timing we run into, let's see what's going on.
So are those guidelines for the facilitators, table facilitators then, or are these the guidelines of what we're hoping to accomplish?
This is for table conversation. So yeah, facilitators will have it, you guys will have it, but we're not asking you to play that role as facilitating, and these will be on the wall, most likely.
It might be useful for those of us that are at the tables to be facilitating somewhat, just to get people going a little bit. Do you think, or?
Yeah, but I think our hesitancy in asking HRC to play that role is that a facilitator has a lot of power in how the conversation shifts. And we'd like, there to be less of that and more listening. So, I feel like what we're really after is how do we best listen in this event? How do we best create an atmosphere where people from organizations are gonna feel free and to be candid about what they're working on, how they see us as a commission, and providing their suggestions and feedback to us. So, I'm not opposed to HRC facilitating, but that's what I think we were thinking of with that.
I'm sure it'll probably work just fine to have somebody there, and if there is a stall in the conversation, people might look at an HRC person and say, what are we supposed to be doing now? So I think that'll probably be fine.
In a way, just to talk about a way to have listening and to make it seem transparent. Just have one of those at every table and have them take minutes so that everybody can see what they're doing.
Are the HRC person taking notes?
Yeah, one of those.
And do we have those set up, or we? Okay. Yeah.
We can do it, sit.
And be transparent, see what you're writing, big words, and you have notes to take away.
That would be nice.
Well, sometimes you can prep those kind of questions already on, so
Yeah.
that way the questions being asked without the facilitator having to be one addressed.
That's a great idea. Okay, I'm happy to look into that. Okay, okay, and then,
Can I make a comment on your guidelines?
yes.
Just on directionally on the way we talk about that last piece around gaps.
Yeah.
And on wordsmithing the last part of that, instead of saying considering its role, one thing we might want to do is try to discover what people's understanding of our role is. So if we phrase it as giving your understanding of HRC or HRC's mission, how do you think? So that we might get a sense for what they've come into this expecting from us, as opposed to us. Obviously, we're going to give them some direction, we are, but we might get an understanding, we might get a sense for whether there's a misunderstanding in the community as to what we can do.
Or, I think the way that I view what you're saying is as a more aspirational statement of what maybe we should be striving to do, because this is what the community expects. And while we can't get there today,
Yeah.
You should be considering it.
Last month, Malloy, you suggested that we ask questions that go beyond our mandate, right? I think that's again what we're talking about. How do we get at those pieces of what does the community want of us? I agree.
sort of like, what would you like us to be doing? And then now that you know what we do, how do you think? Yeah, I mean, getting both pieces of information would be very valuable.
Okay, we are working on handouts, and they will include this page here, two-sided page, the mission, who the commissioners are, and then purpose statements for every committee. And so we're missing a few, it looks like, and contact information for each. And then we're also gonna print out the PowerPoint images so people can have those available. And we're moving strategic plan information onto the handout as well. Just kind of a brief outline as to what's the snapshot of our strategic plan so people can refer to it and rather than going into it during the event. And we'll talk about this as a part of the strategic plan that led us to that event, the discovery work. But beyond that, we don't want to get too far, we're hearing into what are we all about, but want to make it available in handout. Am I missing anything? No. Linda is here. She has been working very creatively and energetically with us. We're very thankful for her help. Yeah.
Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome, it's a joy.
I think that's it.
Okay, so are there next steps that you need from anybody on the HRC, other than I'm gonna get you opening remarks? And so, and then
Your
distribute
opening,
those.
yeah, your opening remarks and Diallo's still need some hashing out.
Okay.
I worked on that a little bit, and I'm not too worried about that.
Do you need our help next week recontacting some of this?
Thank you, yes, absolutely. We'll get in touch with you about that. What else next? We're gonna be working closely with Jeff on getting things paid for.
Are we supposed to volunteer for things specifically, or? I
Yes.
just told Myra I was gonna show up and do whatever.
Okay, I think we're gonna be working that out next week and contacting you directly. Particularly as we see what organizations are showing up. We wanna do some matching up with who's working on what themes to support those tables.
I didn't know if we needed the sizes for the readers.
Just get those orange construction vests.
One
size
jumpsuits.
fits all.
And I think it really would be nice for people to know kind of what they're supposed to expect when they get there. So, you know, anything you can do to help us out with that would be great. I have some idea, but not everybody's doing that thing, so, I think that would be really helpful for people. So they show up with a sense of purpose. Yeah. But thank you guys for all your work on this. It's an exciting event, and I think that it'll be a great opportunity for human rights advocates to come together and talk about what's working and what's not, and hopefully share our ideas.
I didn't mention the feedback that we're getting, which is all over the map. Kyle shared some feedback from I would say a well-established organization that wasn't sure how this event would be useful to them. And conversations that I've had have run also from very excited, thank you so much. Can't wait to be around this group of attendees and hear what you're about and have them collaborate. To, I'm really suspect of the system. I don't know how this would work, you know, what I say, how that would get to the right people. So is it gonna be worth my time? So all of that is really interesting, and we're trying to compile it and keep it for a report that we'll bring forward later. But overall, I think this is an event that the smaller organizations are excited about because they are either trying to figure out how to have more of an impact, trying to figure out how to partner, and are wanting to understand who else is doing similar work in the city.
And this is set for June 26th, right?
Okay, well, thank you very much. All right. So. Am I on schedule? Oh, wow, we are right on schedule, everybody. That's amazing. Good job, guys. Yeah. The next thing on the agenda is returning to our emerging issues section to talk about anything that's come up since our last meeting that we need to have on the agenda. This is, kind of also a part of our larger effort to refocus on our strategic plan and to be able to address issues that are coming up and analyze those issues through a human rights lens. So, I've got one or two things to discuss, but if anybody would like to open with anything that they think the Human Rights Commission should be starting to keep their eyes on.
I want to, I have something, but let me pull it up.
Okay.
So I sent a email out probably, I want to say a couple weeks ago about, I can't find it right now, but it was about something that just got passed where formerly incarcerated have been kicked off food stamps. And I wanted to talk about it in relation just to the prison industrial system, because I kind of brought it up last meeting. And I just kind of went through what's been going on in the city, and it seemed like a lot of people are pretty focused on it and trying to change it ever since Michelle Alexander was here to talk about the new Jim Crow. So I just wanted to keep that on your radar. And they also in the email asked for us to take action. And usually what I've seen in the past HRC do is they write a letter in support or in opposition for something, and we can do that again.
So, thank you for that email. I remember getting that, and I think prisoners' rights issues is a huge issue. Was that a state? Just because we have to be mindful of our mission and in our sort of our jurisdiction, I guess.
I don't know if people want to say, but I mean, how are we not affected by state things? Like,
I'm not. I'm actually hoping it is state and not national.
Oh yeah, it's not federal, it's state.
Okay.
It's okay.
So.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Was it a bill that was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, here it is. So, formerly incarcerated, Senate agrees to kick formerly incarcerated off food benefits. Your action is needed now. This week, Oregon's U.S. Senators Wyden and Merkley allowed an amendment to the Farm Bill that establishes incredibly damaging. Oh, it's federal.
Yeah. But certainly, yeah. I mean, I think that prisoners' rights is a huge issue, and at least as an individual. I wrote this in the email, we can all write our senators and express our disapproval with that kind of, with allowing that kind of thing to happen. And it is going to have some impact on Oregon.
So wait, you can't, as an HRC, comment on a federal issue?
Good. Well, I think we can. I just think the analysis is going to be a little bit different coming from us on a federal bill.
Well, the way, not to discuss the merits of this issue, trying to hash it all out here, but, so we're saying food stamps are going to be denied to people who criminal records get support. And I know that there's plenty of analysis done, and the EEOC has even said that people of color are disproportionately negatively impacted by criminal history requirements. And so what we would need to do, I think, before opining as a commission is to say, this is how we see it impacting the residents of Portland, and having the disparate impact that exists nationally would exist here, and continue to marginalize our communities of color, which we view as a human rights violation, and thus we urge senators to whatever. But I don't know what sort of steps we have to do. Do we have to clear it with the city attorney? Do we have to clear it with whoever it was we met with, Pellegrino? before we lobby people.
It kind of makes me think about something that I brought up like a while back ago about kind of creating a national relationship with other human rights commissions, so that just as a national front, we could all say something together that makes it, that kind of has a little bit more weight than just coming from Portland. So, build sister organizations, New York or LA, see what's going on with them, see where we match.
I think it's a really good idea. There actually, we had a phone call, Damon and I believe, and it might have been, Amy, were you on the call? I think it had to do with HTTF. But it was with a professor at Columbia University, and she was talking about a network of human rights commissions. And it was mostly East Coast, but I think that could be an effective way to be at least dialed into the national political scene in the human rights arena. And Lloyd, what you were talking about, going through the process.
Yeah, I don't know if we have limits on, because this would be potentially considered a form of lobbying if we were to write the senators as a commission. Obviously, like Kyle said, as an individual, we have the right to do whatever we want, but if we were to say something as a commission, like repeal this amendment or restore this funding, or eliminate this prohibition, I think that can be construed as lobbying, and that may mean we have to go through different groups before we can say something else.
So how do we find out what we need to find out?
Talk to the city attorney, probably. Also, I think that, we're already engaged in that kind of activity. I mean, I've written letters on behalf of the housing bill. We have taken a position in favor of mandatory paid sick leave. And so those, essentially that's the same kind of activity. So we might not need to, but I think, whenever you have a question like that, especially for lawyers, it's never a bad idea to look. Yeah, well, maybe. But, this actually brings us to an interesting, or is sort of a good segue for taking a look at this human rights impact analysis that I passed out right before. We've talked about this impact analysis a number of times now and haven't actually used it. And probably one of the reasons we haven't used it is because we actually don't have a clean copy of it. It's just an example of something that was done back in, I think, 2011. And so, but I think it's something that we need to start doing and can start doing right away, which is when the city or state, or in this case, potentially the federal government has a law that is being considered or passes, and the Human Rights Commission believes that it may implicate human rights issues, we can run it through this impact analysis. And I think that an appropriate way to do that would be to go through the policy committee. Ashley's not here, so she doesn't speak for herself on this, but I think that we're talking about policy here and the impact of legislation. And so I wanted everybody to have this so that we could take a closer look at it. I think that we've just had one kind of passed around a couple of times. And so this is the kind of thing, and if you read through this, it's really a really useful tool for determining the type and the extent to which human rights are implicated in city, state, federal policy.
Was this a Word document?
No, I think this was a PDF. Yeah.
Because I remember seeing one that I could type on. We could just take off the words from here and actually.
Yeah, we can just, I think all we have to do is create a clean format, and it would be useful right away.
So, I think this is great that we have it, and I've heard about it a long time ago, and I'm happy to really see it. Do we wanna go through a process of vetting it now, I mean, at this point in time, with this commission, and to see if there's any edits we wanna?
My suggestion is that what we should do is get it informed and use it and test it on different things as opposed to going through, because I think there was a long process in development. So I think development should end, and we should start testing it on live examples pretty quickly.
Is
If we
that-
and actually go through a training process, that's the piece we're missing, I think, is to set up a point at which whoever is gonna use this thing gets trained on how it gets used. That's
And I understood that Maria Lisa was critical in creating this. I wonder if she could come in and give us a tutorial on it, orientation on it, before we move into that test period. The other thing I'd say is, let's give the test period a time frame. Assume how many times are we going to be able to, or let's set a goal as to how many times we want to put issues through that, and then mark time in the future as to when we can move from that testing period to evaluation.
Okay, well, I think that the time to do that is now. And so maybe we could see, I don't know what Maria Lisa's schedule looks like, but I would imagine that she might be willing to at least give some background on how this was developed. And in the meantime, if there are issues that come up, we might, even if we're not going to necessarily act on the recommendations because we're still in that testing phase, we might put it to the test just to see how it works and what we might change about it. And so, these emerging issues periods are the time to identify those issues. So we could put it to the test with this very issue. And I think that maybe when we talk to Ashley about that, my suggestion would be that this is a tool that is used by the policy committee to bring recommendations to the HRC. And I'm on the policy committee, Ashley's on the policy committee, and John's on the policy committee. So maybe we could talk about doing this, and maybe if you wanted to be a part of that, and, part of that testing, that would be great.
And this is a really useful document for then helping, either Jeff or whoever's doing communications to write up the, statement too. So just all the information you need and things right.
Yeah, it's really great. This came actually as a part of an email that Alan sent me to just demonstrate how this was used for this purpose and to see the evolution of analysis to action in that example with the ice example was really powerful. And I think that it's a really nice piece of infrastructure that we could plug in, and I agree, Amy, that we need to make sure that it's appropriate for our use, but I think it's a useful tool. So I think that when we have a chance to talk to Ashley, we'll maybe start talking about the test. And I think if everybody thinks it's a good idea, then I can talk to Maria Lisa maybe about whether she has the time to come in and at least discuss with us the evolution of the document, if there have been any changes to the kind of the foundation of how it was created in the first place. One issue that I noticed, and Alan actually brought it to my attention after the last meeting, was the potential that the SITLI ordinance may be coming back. This is something that was addressed by the Human Rights Commission. When was that, Alan?
Must have been 2000 either 11 or 10 when, for lack of a better term, SITLI 2 was being considered, was passed, which is the sidewalk management plan for the city. And there was a bill in the Oregon legislature to the bill, what the bill was intended to do was to provide local jurisdictions the opportunity to manage their own sidewalks, which the conversation then turned to, if you allowed local jurisdictions to do that, what you would see would be the return of things like a sit-line ordinance. The bill at the legislature level has stalled, is not going to be moving forward. But you saw that there was an editorial in the Oregonian, either this morning or yesterday, that essentially said, even though the bill has stalled, the city of Portland and the mayor should revisit sidewalk management plan in light of the fact that, in part because Commissioner Fritz lobbied the legislature to kill this bill. So I think that there's a sense in some communities that that might be returning again. So it's something that, you know, that we've talked about. We've had people here who have testified about the sidewalk management plan, and it's something that we used to attend the sidewalk. I think it's some sidewalk advisory committee or sidewalk management plan advisory committee, which I'm not sure meets any longer. But again, just something that I think should be on our radar because it has disparate impacts for communities that are experiencing homelessness and might not have other places to rest and to recreate within the sidewalk.
And I must be wrong because I would imagine you know, but I thought that there was actually a work group meeting in the Senate this month about this issue.
Yeah, and I think that's where, I think it just recently died. I mean, it just died like this week. And so, it died because maybe the wrong word, because the session's not over, it's stalled. It looks like it's not going to be.
Okay. So maybe that's something to put on the back burner.
Yeah, I'm just not sure that it'll ever go away, given at least the downtown business concern around activities that happen on the sidewalks in downtown. I was going to save it for announcements, but one of the things that's going to come up this weekend, if you've never heard about it, is that that there's going to be a protest or a rally around the fact that the night before the Rose Festival parade, camping is allowed for one night on the streets of Portland, and it is actually legal to camp on the streets, whereas every other night of the year it is illegal to camp in the city. And so, again, folks in that community take the opportunity to rally around that point, that every other day of the year it's a crime to camp on the streets, but the Rose Festival, they actually allow you to do it. So that is convening on Friday morning, overnight Friday, as part of the Rose Festival. All part of the sidewalk management stop.
So does anybody else have anything they want to bring up that has come up in the last month that HRC should be paying attention to, maybe subjecting to the human rights impact analysis? Okay.
And I think there actually is one of these analyses for sidewalk management.
Is there? Okay. Well, if we could get that would be helpful.
I'll look back at my stuff.
And just to be clear, the bill, if it does come back in its current form, is not actually to, it doesn't actually legislate what you can do on your sidewalks. It just allows cities to make their own decisions about that. Because the Oregon Court of Appeals, I believe, ruled that there was a state statute saying that allowing cities to make that decision for themselves was unlawful. And so that would be the change in the law. It wouldn't be actually telling Portland what to do. It would allow Portland to make that decision for themselves, which is what I see a lot of people know. Yeah. Okay. So, next on the agenda, we're going to talk about executive committee nominations. This is something that was raised when we elected Damon to be vice chair, and that maybe we can do a better job of nominating our executive officers in a way that is just a little bit more inclusive and transparent. And so I wanted to just take a few minutes to talk about how we might do that, and also to confirm that everybody knows that this is an opportune time to have this discussion because we're going to be electing a new vice chair next month. And the bylaws say that if somebody resigns on the executive board, then you have to replace them within 2 months after the resignation. And so that'll happen next month, and we thought it would be a good idea to give us an opportunity to revisit the nominations procedure this month, and then have anybody who's interested in joining the executive board in that capacity, go ahead and let us know, either today or between now and then. So, in the past, at least since I've been on the commission, the way that executive officers have been nominated is essentially the executive committee has identified people who might be interested in becoming an executive officer, and then talked about it and essentially come to a conclusion by the next meeting, which of the people that may be interested are going to get nominated. They nominate one person and we elect them. That system is not always pleasing to everybody, and so we want to make sure that we're doing something that is maybe, well, that would be a little more transparent, a little more inclusive. And so what we were considering for today would be to just open it up for suggestions on how if anybody else has an idea for how it might work better. We don't have a ton of time to talk about it, but the proposals that I've heard have included engaging interest the month before the nomination, bless you. Having people put their name in the hat, and then that gives everybody the opportunity to think about the nominees over the course of the next month, and then having a vote, either private or public. I think it, for purposes of the commission voting, would have to be public, at the next meeting to elect the officer.
Can everybody just nominate 3 people and then we vote on the people who say yes to that?
Well, I'm not sure everybody would nominate the same 3 people.
Well, we not everybody will vote for the same.
You're suggesting that we nominate 45 people?
No, like I'm saying, like if I nominated 2 people, or if I nominated 1 person and then that person says, yeah, I'm willing to be in the voting, I'm willing to be the vice president, then we vote on those people who got nominated.
Rather than, so basically, are you adding a nomination to the plan?
Maybe nomination's not the right word, but like, say I think Malloy should be the vice president, and Malloy says, I'm willing to do that. And then Alan says, Amy should be vice president, and she says she's willing to do that, and then at the end, we vote on Malloy, right?
So it sounds like you're suggesting that happen rather than people put themselves into that hat. In Kyle's
So
scenario.
maybe if I add on to what Kyle said, because I mean, Kyle talked about it from the perspective of the executive committee.
Okay.
So, I mean, from my perspective, not having been on the executive committee, what you're describing is essentially how it has been, what we've done. It's just that I don't think there's been a contested vote for any position. I think once some, and honestly, we've had situations where we've gone through, like, you know, what about you? Would you be interested? No. Oh, no. Yes. And then it's like, okay, someone's interested, you know, someone's willing to spend the time doing it. Great, you're nominated, and then if anyone else wants to be nominated or anyone else wants to start against someone else, that door hasn't been closed, it's just that it's like, oh, okay, great, somebody finally wants to do this.
It seems like, just for uniformity and transparency, like if a single person's getting a phone call to ask if they want to do it, then everybody should get a phone call. And everybody should have an opportunity to put their name in. And I think if we followed those 2 rules, then everybody would have an opportunity to nominate themselves, and then we vote. You know? I think, I like your idea, but I think it puts people in the position of not being able to, their own hat in the ring.
Right.
And it's like an added process that
Well,
maybe,
I mean, in my situation, I could also nominate myself. And I'm thinking about like, how does democracy work? Like, how do you want like that?
Mhm.
So,
But I guess, I mean, I've never viewed our process as not allowing for that.
right.
So,
I just,
But
I
I
think we say,
think when we call people and we don't call other people, it kind
That's-
of leads to like a cloudy situation.
Okay. But it's
Why
so small.
why can't we just say that anyone's interested in being vice chair, just tell the executive committee?
Because if no one tells the executive committee they're interested, then we have to do it. So,
Does that ever happen?
yeah.
Yeah.
probably
Yes.
like-
that's
Yeah,
actually,
That's what you just said.
that's actually the situation that led to, now we need to call some folks and say, who might be interested in vice chair?
Right.
It's not, we want to exclude 13 people, and here are the 2 people that we want to be vice chairs. I think there are 13 people who don't want to be vice chair. Here are the
Who are
2
the
that
2
might want to
people?
be, let's call them and find out if they want to be vice chair.
Right, I mean, it's the same thing with my board of directors, like I have
That's
to
right.
call people and beg them.
That's
to be
right,
on
so
my
that's
side.
what the phone calls are about. But, and the process is open, because when we get to nominations, what we say is, we're now open for nominations. Does anybody want to nominate someone else or nominate themselves to be vice chair?
Right, and I
So it's
guess
kind
in
of what Diallo was saying.
Diallo's,
Yeah,
you
Diallo's
know,
saying, yeah.
in talking about Diallo's idea, it's true, like if people get nominated, then it's like a, just, you know,
I
I
think
don't know
part-
the word I'm looking for, but it's a, that, whatever that is, to call
Getting tapped.
someone. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm like losing
But I think the change in the process is, let's do that nomination, instead of doing it at the same meeting that we vote, let's do it the meeting before.
No.
Yeah, so we can do it now, either a formal nomination process or at least interest. So then we have kind of a whole month to think about it, or ask other people to, you know, to put themselves in the ring.
and I think, I mean, just listening to the way that Kyle described it the last time and stuff, I mean, the only piece of it that I'm not that comfortable with is I don't know that the executive committee should be, the entity, should officially be the ones doing that. That it should be more
Like
organic.
nominating committee?
Well, no, I'm not suggesting the nominating committee.
Couldn't we just do it like, so we're all sitting here today?
You're
We
not
can
all
say-
here today, though.
Well, we are all sitting here today. Couldn't we just say, is anybody here interested in being vice chair? And let's say Malloy says, I'm interested in being vice chair. And nobody else does. That doesn't mean Malloy's gonna be vice chair, because there may be somebody who's not here that's interested. So everybody who isn't here, we can send an email and say, Malloy has expressed interest in being vice chair. If anybody else is interested in being vice chair, send an email out saying that you're interested, and then we're gonna vote at the next meeting. And if nobody sends that email out, Malloy's gonna be vice chair, we have to vote him in, but, I mean, does that seem fair?
Yeah, we still go through the vote.
Yeah, you still go through the vote.
Boards were able to ever nominate themselves.
Well,
Well, that's tough.
that is a good point, but I don't know that we can work around that.
You've gotta be,
Yeah.
to be in the leadership position, you've gotta put yourself in the leadership position. And that's just, that's how I feel about it.
So can I just jump in real quick, sorry? Yes, I think that scenario that Kyle just laid out would work as long as there's enough notice beforehand for people, so people know that they need to get to this meeting, to let their interest be known, right? To determine what that is, I don't know, but.
This is the meeting you have to do it, and that notice was sent out. When you said that, when you said that David stepped down.
So you can make it to the meeting if you know there's gonna be a nomination, but if there isn't, you might not go to the meeting.
Well,
Well, that's always true. When you get the agenda, look at it and see, wow, don't most people do.
I guess that's true.
I agree with
Those of
You gotta
us
start
who,
spicing up that agenda, Jeff.
those of us who don't have a choice, I guess don't understand.
well,
Well, this year.
but so in this case, let's say, well, we announced that Damon had resigned a while ago, but, or I guess last week. We're here, and anybody who's interested can put their hat in the ring today. tomorrow, for those people who were not here, an email can be sent out saying this is what happened. If anybody else is interested in doing it, let us know. By a week before the next meeting. That gives them plenty of time to decide. It gives everybody else plenty of time to think about who they're gonna vote for, and then you have the vote at the next meeting.
And you're instructing people to let everyone know at once?
I think that if you're gonna throw your hat in the ring, yeah, you're gonna, I would say that you should announce that.
I mean, it sounds like what we're talking about creating is a nominations period of about a month.
Exactly.
So nominations are, this position is open for nominations from June 4th to July, whatever our next meeting is. And they'll close prior to voting at the July meeting. And then people can either self-nominate or others can nominate them on,
Yeah, I guess that's true too. I mean, we can, there can be the option of nominating somebody if you wanna do it.
Yeah.
But
There's no reason not to
I
do that.
think-
And if somebody doesn't wanna do it, they can say they don't wanna do it.
I think that
So nominate more than one person?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think that doesn't necessarily address the issue that Alan was discussing about why phone calls started being made, because there was an anticipation there would not be nominations.
Well, we'll know,
Interested parties.
we'll know tonight whether or not we need to make phone calls, right? Because we might have some people interested.
You'll know at the end of the nomination period,
Right.
which is, according to what Kyle said, a week before.
Yeah.
And so if
But
we
we'll
get
have a
to-
sense tonight whether or not, because if 2 people right now said, I nominate myself to be vice chair, we might not need to make any phone calls.
Right,
We're talking about, how do we standardize this?
Yeah.
so what happens, so the question that still remains is, what happens if we announce it at this meeting, nobody says, I want to be nominated, or no one, John, we nominate Donna or Danita, and so they're not here to say whether they would do it or not. We run the risk of showing up next month, not having someone willing to serve in that capacity, and what do we do then?
Okay, I think that's when that's when the phone call started to be made, but it's okay because everybody's had the opportunity to throw their hat in the ring or to be nominated. And so if we strong arm somebody into becoming vice chair after everybody else has had the opportunity to be involved, then frankly, anybody who complains about the fact that they weren't included in the process doesn't have a, yeah, I mean,
I think that we should give it more than a week, maybe 2 weeks.
I think we're giving them.
what do you give what a week?
Have people be finished with the nominations by a week before the meeting. We give people 2 weeks, then we'll know at 2 weeks who's been nominated, and we'll be able to have 2 weeks to resonate on it. I should think about it, and so will they.
And if we have to make phone calls, then you have 2
Yeah.
weeks to be making those phone calls. A week is a quick
I
turnaround
see.
time.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
So maybe we have a nomination period that is 3 weeks. So we announce an open position a week prior to the first meeting. So let's use June and July as our 2 meetings. So a week prior to this meeting, you have to announce the position's open, which Kyle just did. That starts the processes of people at least considering whether or not they want to move into a leadership position. This meeting, we're going to open it for nominations. They're going to stay open for 2 weeks, and then we'll close, and then we'll have a slate that's proposed for voting at the July meeting.
Did you get that? I had a falafel in
Just
my
drew a
hand.
rainbow.
I'm sorry.
That's your excuse. That's your
Okay,
official.
so-
That's my falafel.
That's gonna make it
It's
the
the
note.
falafel defense.
Okay, so
So,
there's a 3-week nomination period.
yes,
Starts with the announcement of the position.
Last week.
1
The
week
week
prior to
before.
this meeting,
Okay,
1 week prior to the nomination meeting. The nominations will close 2 weeks following this meeting, which we're referring to now as the nomination meeting. Because the July meeting is referred to as the voting meeting.
Any commissioner who is not present at the nomination meeting will get an email
Following day.
within 48 hours. Just to give us some time. I'll do one second.
Within 48 hours.
Within 48 hours after the nominating meeting, informing them of
The
uh,
opportunity.
Call for now.
the call for nomination.
When does this say,
And the deadline.
Okay. The whole commission will receive an email within 48 hours.
So they need to know what happened here, right?
Right.
Whether it's-
Explain.
Yeah.
Thank you for not taking.
And so then there's 2 weeks and the nomination process closes. And we can still have nominees within those next 2 weeks.
No.
And then those 2 weeks lets people resonate on if they've been nominated, do they really want to continue? And if there's not been any nominations, then you guys can make calls.
But if people have been nominated and decide they don't want, that needs to be known.
And within those 2
Because
weeks.
that's how we know to make calls.
Right.
Because if
That's the closing.
Donna's not here, so if I nominated her and you send this email out 2 days from now and she's like, hey, I don't want to do this,
Then
That's, comes out at the close.
then we need to figure out.
Who do you send the nominations to?
Chair.
I don't know.
I
Well,
think
that's
I think that's
everyone,
something that can address your concerns on is, the 2 weeks before the voting meeting, by the first week of that, so by a week before the voting meeting, people need to say yes or no.
I think it's just simpler to say that nominations, you're open to take nominations up until prior to the voting. And at 2 weeks, Kyle, or whoever we direct nominations to be made to will know, hey, I've gotten nominations or I haven't, and then he can, at his discretion, or the chair's discretion, or whoever we task with this, start making phone calls and say, hey, I haven't gotten any nominations, would you be interested in serving? No, okay, we're going down the list. If we close the nominations period prior to the July meeting, and then magically reopen it to take a nomination that occurred after that period, I think we just created a rule that we have to violate in order to fill a vacancy when no one wants to do it. And rather than create that dichotomy, I think it's just simpler to say nominations closed prior to the voting, and whoever we're tasking with receiving the nominations just keeps track of it and at 2 weeks before the voting meeting, they start recruiting and no one's expressed interest.
Right. And so at that 2 week voting period, people will know who's been nominated though, because people need to have enough time to think about who they really want to do.
So maybe we say the pre-2 week period, you would send out a list of who has been nominated
Another
thus
date.
far.
Okay. At the 2 week period, the
Prior
chair,
to the voting meeting.
Right.
the chair will send out a list of anyone who has been nominated. And that will be the cutoff point
Or
for
anyone who's been
volunteer,
nominated but
no,
checked.
never mind.
No, not
Leave it at
at
that.
that point, it's just informational.
Okay.
Just information.
And what was that, Christine, sorry?
And anyone who's been nominated and turned it down,
Right.
to keep that transparency going.
Okay. And then I'll start arm twisting.
So those of us who decline can't hide.
Right. Okay.
All right, so here's what I have.
Yeah.
It's a 3-week nomination.
No.
Well, actually, no, it's not.
Well, you're right. Well, it's, okay.
It's like a 5 week now.
All right, look, we gotta get through this, guys.
All right, so first off, the 1 week prior to the nomination meeting, the position is announced. Then we're open for nominations. That'll be sent to the chair. Nominations will close prior to the voting meeting, which is the next meeting after the nomination. The chair will send an email to the HRC within 48 hours after the nomination meeting. Two weeks prior to the voting meeting, the chair will email the HRC the list of any nominees.
And nominees who have declined.
Actually, the nominations actually don't close before the voting, they close just prior to the vote. So
Prior
they
to the
close
vote,
at
same.
the, yeah, they close at the voting.
Yes.
Then I move that.
So on you, Jim.
I move that we create a nominating process whereby 1 week, we create a nominating, we designate a nominating meeting and a voting meeting. 1 week prior to the nominating meeting, any vacancies on the executive committee will be announced to the full HRC by email. At the nominating meeting, we will take any nominations. The nominating period will continue up until the voting at the voting meeting. 2 weeks prior to the voting meeting, the chair will send around information to the full HRC disclosing nominees, people who have been nominated, and those who have declined nomination. All right, and 48 hours after the nominating meeting, the chair will send to the full HRC notes on the discussion of the nominating.
Second. We've discussed, so all in favor, and a show of hands, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passed. We have a nominations process. Thank you, everybody. Pursuant to that nominations process, is there any commissioner currently at this meeting who would, who would like to nominate anyone to be vice chair? Including themselves.
I have 3 people.
Okay.
I'm gonna do this.
Okay, good. I don't know if you know one. Amy, Malloy, Donita.
Anyone else have any nominations? Alan?
I'd like to nominate 3 people.
Okay.
I would nominate Amy, Samara, clarification. Diallo Bench. And Myra.
Ariola. Okay.
You're gonna have to fill your eyes.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Okay. And so, Amy, do you accept the nomination? You don't? All right. Lloyd, do you accept the nomination? Okay.
You don't have to decide, this isn't a final decision either, by the way.
That's adding a whole nother motion, an amendment to the motion.
It's just a.
Could have had Amy before, but. Diallo, do you accept the nomination?
Oh, you're having nominated.
Sure. All right. All right, hey, well, that was fun. This is political career meeting. We've all seen the birth of the Olive political life. All right.
Taking the other line of the presidency.
I was there when it all started, folks.
Look at the pictures.
Could you take a picture of the Olive all of us around and going?
And then we put it on Facebook.
And us in the end.
Yep. Okay. So, next thing on the agenda, I'm sorry, yeah, you'd think it was 6:30, right? Is focusing on our strategic plan. There's been a lot of discussion lately about our direction and trying to use a guidepost for staying focused and making sure that we have benchmarks that we're following the plan that we adopted back in July, I guess now, of 2012. It's been almost a year, which is kind of crazy. And so I wanted to give us all, and the executive committee was talking about this a lot during our executive committee meeting, giving us all the opportunity to revisit the strategic plan a little bit and look at how we're doing, look at whether or not we need to be more mindful of the plan that we all adopted, and what we can do to make sure that we're staying on track. And Alan has put together what is a really great tool for keeping track of our activities in the framework of the strategic plan, so that we're making sure that as we continue down the road and do the work that we do, that we're looking at the work that we do through the lens of the strategic plan. So, Alan, you want to introduce us to the?
Yeah, so I'm going to hand this out. And so what I'm handing out to you, there's copies to go around to John, and then there's extra copies that just end up down there. So all that I did was take the actual words that are in our strategic plan. There's a whole section, and Kyle's got the document here, you can tell us where it starts. Each of the strategies that are in the strategic plan have already laid out kind of general overriding activities and goals that we'd set up in the strategic plan. So I just took those and copied them into this table. And my thinking was that we could take and start listing the things that we're actually doing related to each of those activities. And as Kyle said, make sure that the things that we're doing, we're viewing through the lens of the strategic plan itself. So this is the very beginning of that. And really, most of it is just my effort in formatting in a way that will help us keep track of the things we're doing and how they relate to our strategic plan. So the first thing that I filled in, for instance, was under discovery strategy, just like we talked about with CDC. You know, the roundtable forum is one of the steps around that second priority activity in the discovery for creating an ongoing proactive forum that encourages community-driven human rights issues to be brought to the commission and develop strategies to address them. So that is one of the activities we're doing under that, one of the events or actions that we're taking underneath that activity. So my goal would be to fill in this table and assign some time frames to the activities and the events around how we're hoping to achieve these different goals that we have for ourselves. So each of the 4 core strategies that are discovery, visibility, education, and advocacy have both activities and then measures and outcomes. So we've already talked about after the roundtable, there will be some kind of reporting that happens. We know that there's reporting that's going to go to council. So all of those kinds of events and actions will end up on the tables. So again, this is just a tool for us to capture the things we're already doing in the lens of how they relate to the strategic plan. So it also gives us the opportunity to look at activities and say, does this fit where we should be strategically or not? The other thing, as I said to Kyle, it also might, when we look at this table and it's all filled in, we see blanks, we'll know that there are things that we agreed to strategically that we're not taking action on. And I think we'll see some of those places. If you look through all of those different priority activities, there are some things that we aren't taking action on right now. The upside of this is that we did label this a 2012 to 2015 strategic plan, so we could program it in a little bit later at some time. So it is. It really is a way of just putting our work, capturing it in here, and then we'll develop a process to make sure it stays updated and how it gets communicated back to the HRC. The expectation isn't that commissioners will go in and update this, but we'll definitely need some help populating it. But one of the thoughts was that it would get talked about at the executive committee as a check-in on how we're doing and what we're doing, and then maybe quarterly we can take some time at this big meeting to check in on it also and make sure all the activities are on there and being updated. That's what this is. I could distribute it electronically if folks want to help fill it in. You can just send me your ideas. Make sure that we get everything on there, or if you have ideas about programming that should go on here, especially out in 2014, 2015, that relates to some of our priority activities, then also please do some of that thinking. Because I think we haven't really thought that far out on some of the pieces. Like, I think we're doing a lot around discovery, and we're going to start to be doing a lot around visibility. There are probably some education pieces that we haven't really started to take action on. And advocacy, kind of all the different groups are doing it. You know, HCTF is doing some, HRTF is doing some, policy obviously is doing some. So there are bits and pieces that we just want to capture in one place.
This is really great. It's like a bingo game.
It's like a video game. wait till we start filling it in. There are no free spaces, but that's actually not true.
This is awesome, Alan.
There's something you actually get for free. But sort of, you can also fill in like the annual report, so I know that we're thinking about doing that in October now.
And one thing that, I mean, this is a lot like a balanced scorecard related to the strategic plan. And for status, one way that we do it is just regular green instead of like
Oh, yeah.
words. That way anybody can take a look at the plan and see, okay,
Yeah.
like, where are we exactly, just from a quick, without having to like read people's dialogue.
And it also encourages
Visual.
names in parentheses so that you know who left the note
Oh, yeah, that's.
in each cell,
Yeah.
so there's not repetition. And I'd encourage, instead of emailing, if there's a way we could host it online through our G Drive or the website, it would be a lot easier because you're gonna miss edits if somebody doesn't email it to you and such.
We could, I think we do actually have a Google group and a Google
Yeah.
Docs. The one thing I don't like about Google Docs is it's actually a Word document that, yeah, like the formatting.
We talked about that in the whole public records, public meeting.
Right.
I remember there was some potential issue.
I guess I'm thinking more of Google Docs and Google Groups. So that the ability to share a document, to collaborate on a document. I'm thinking about it.
We should probably run it by these.
And there's the question of who's gonna be populating it and whether or not we want it to be like a shared document where everybody's just filling stuff in, or whether we want it to be a tool where, a committee or the executive committee or whoever is going to be paying attention to what everybody's doing based on our meetings, and then filling this in, and then trying to strategize.
Yeah, I think the chairs of each committee
Yeah.
That would be a good idea.
responsible for their
Yeah.
committee.
Or there's an item, establish the organization and operations ad hoc committee. That seems like an appropriate body to oversee this, whatever,
Yeah,
however you
that's
see
right.
fit. And
It's just so much faster to have the chairs update and then
Yes.
have the organization operations facilitate.
I think that's a good idea, and we just don't want everybody jumping in and putting in everything that they're doing.
It's just
You know, I
hard,
had a
it's like-
meeting today, this is the discovery thing, you know?
Right, because like, there's chairs of different, like, we don't have chair of progress measures and outcome, you know, like, they don't align exactly, so I guess we'll have to deal with that.
Right, and I think that in the strategic plan, the idea was that the committees and the strategic plans, hey, all overlap. You know, every committee
Yeah,
is
that's true.
addressing all of the different
Right.
things, so I think it would work. So, but what do you think about the idea of having an accessible document for, you know, through Google Docs? I mean,
for those few people.
Right.
You could try it, I guess, my preference would be to have chairs just email me the information they have, then we can get in here uniformly. And that's one of the downsides of collaborating on a document is the verbiage and the format doesn't necessarily stay uniform, stay standard. So,
But then, you know, quarterly, the organization's operations, people can come in and make it uniform.
That's right, yeah, we do that. So for instance, right now, I'm not sure how to add, there's just formatting stuff that has to happen. So I don't know how to add more rows for all the different activities. Because there could be more than one activity under each, there's gonna be more than one associated event or action for
Could there be
activity.
an appendix where the person just states like the title of it with an asterisk and then provides summary information on another document attached?
Or the same document, just a text section
Yeah.
below,
Mhm.
footnote.
I mean, I think we need to be careful that this is more of an overview.
Yeah, just a quick
We're not-
list.
Yeah, just because it's supposed to be sort of a snapshot of how we're doing on the strategic
Yeah.
plan rather than a real descriptive document.
That's true.
So we want to, it could become pretty unwieldy if there's an attachment for
Right.
every item or footnote for every item or something.
And I mean, that's also, like, for my balanced scorecard, like, I don't have anything but stats.
Right.
Like, it's just red, yellow, or green.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then we have the conversation at the meetings about
This is-
going on. But that would be hard to do if there were cross updates going on between chairs.
I think we need text,
Yeah.
but we could also use color.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So, I'm sorry, did we say that everyone, that the chairs, the committee chairs will email Alan all the input for the work plan?
Why don't we do that for the initial step?
For 1 week?
As you say, for like 1 month or 2 months.
1 month,
So probably
1 week before.
1 week,
Yeah.
1 week after the voting meeting.
Instead
and-
of 2 hours. Could we start that way?
Yeah,
I mean,
and would it be
if-
helpful for folks to have this electronically instead of otherwise just sending information?
I don't think it would hurt.
Okay.
I think we post it on the website.
Okay.
So anytime we have a significant update,
There again, the why.
well, I mean, just for viewing.
No, I agree with
For
you.
transparency.
I totally agree. That's
Oh,
why I'm
okay.
saying, why wouldn't we just go with the Google Doc? I guess I'm confused.
Because some people can't do that.
Thank you.
Hey, Donna's here.
Yeah, let me place it as a Google Doc and see if.
I'm just saying, because you can make people editors, the chairs, but the rest of us don't get access, but we can view it so we can see it being updated.
Right.
Soon.
But for the public,
See that.
Not for the public, we can put something like a PDF up or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
A non-live document, but let me look at Google Docs and see if I just want to make sure I can do the
Sure.
format.
You probably want to use Excel.
Yeah.
Excel Google Doc.
It's actually built with, you're right, maybe Excel will work.
he's a tax guy.
Why didn't it start in Excel? Oh, because it started out as a Word document.
Kyle, did you have a concern about it?
Well, the only concern I have is that my understanding was that the purpose of the document is sort of an internal auditing. We're seeing how we're doing on our strategic plan, and it's not necessarily something that is a public document. And so, well, they can, I mean, you can get it through a,
We don't have to put it up.
Right.
Give public access to it.
I mean, I don't think there's any reason necessarily not to, but I also don't really know what the function would be of having it be on our
People can
website.
see what the HRC is doing.
Well,
Well, we're also asked to report, or we need to establish our own routine of reporting that's more than annual, I think.
And maybe we do like a more formal, from this quarterly, a report on what this says. That's a little bit more manageable to track and read.
I'll just urge the commission to keep transparency in mind.
Well, I think that's a good idea.
Jack, I think that we need to, Jeff, the J person, whoever you are, the J guy. I'm with him that I think that it would be, especially since we're starting this process of getting community input, I think it would be important to have it on the website as a PDF for people to see. So that if they want to call and give input to the various committees or send an email to the various chairs, that they can. Because what we really want is for the community to have a voice in this. Then they need to see the direction we're heading. Because maybe they have information that will help to change the direction we're headed. And I think it's important that the HRC represent the community and not just operate in a vacuum. So this would be a way of saying to them, we're transparent, that you see what the direction we're going, and if you have input that you think would be important, then please let us know. And understanding that this is a volunteer board commission and there's only so much we can do. So,
Do we intend to have something, have this or something like this available at the June 26th?
We talked about doing a snapshot of the model for change, was it, within there? You know, that, one of those graphs that our facilitator set up for us. But this kind of stuff in detail, no.
yeah, this is
I would support this live document going online, but it seems that you would need to give us some parameters and establish guidelines for how often that's gonna be updated, because it's gonna be changing frequently. And how often do you wanna be doing that?
That's up to the commission. I mean, I can do it every day.
I think quarterly.
Watch out.
No, the website is that easy to work with now, and it's just uploading a PDF. I mean, that's the, And I think it's a transparency thing, but it's also this amazing new tool we have at our disposal to communicate with the public about HRC.
Well, it'd be great if we scheduled out periodic check-ins with this document, as you've been encouraging. And at that point, once there's been a check-in, it goes on at that period of time.
After.
With quarterly.
There would be like a quarterly update at this
Quarterly,
general
okay.
meeting, and then we would post it on the webs, the updated version would go on the website.
I was
And
thinking,
then monthly with the executive.
Exactly, look at it monthly like that.
so should it be posted monthly then, after the executive committee looks at it?
I think that makes sense. I mean, it depends on what you're using the tool for. We're definitely starting to go more toward the informing the public about what we're doing, and that's great. I was thinking it was more of a checklist for us to see if we're on track, but it can be both. And if we were looking for the transparency angle, then the more we update it, the more we should update the website, especially because you're also showing the public that you're doing things. And so you don't want to have done 4 really amazing things and then not have the public know about it for a month because somebody may want to come to a meeting or something like that. So yeah, I think at least monthly.
My hope is that Jeff will eventually become the keeper of this tool.
I'm sure that's your hope.
Well, if
Hope
we-
is not a strategy.
If we start with monthly and then move, you know, if it becomes a living document, then, you know, it might even be eventually a weekly update.
When things happen.
Yeah. You know, as new things are going on.
And I think
Because he's being nice saying daily. Oh, I can do it daily.
Well, he's
I
talking about
I
uploading
think-
the work that we already do, which
Right.
takes
But I think
about 30
Jeff's smart
seconds.
enough, he's gonna be able to decipher what's content. So if he needs a front page story, like he's attending our June event, he'll make that a story, whereas if he updates this report once a month, you're not gonna make that a story, you're just gonna say, well, monthly update.
It'll just be updated. Yeah, and, you know, it won't appeal to everybody, but the fact that it's there,
Right.
if someone really wants to look at it.
More information they have about what we're doing.
All right.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you, Alan, very much for this. It's really great. And yeah, I think that we're moving in the right direction.
So I will send out electronically to the chairs to help start populating the activities that are going.
Okay. Thank you. And we're going to move on to updates because we're a little behind now, but I definitely just really encourage everybody to pay attention to the strategic plan and go back through it because there are some really great insights in there and reminders of what we're doing and why we're doing it. I hope that we'll stay focused on it as we move forward.
I think we should give gold stars and prizes to the committees that fill in the.
It's like, you can't.
Wait a minute.
City-based system.
Since ours is changing days now.
Okay.
Since there's a committee that was born of the strategic plan,
So we have now our committee and task force updates, okay, well, we already did discovery, so, yeah, we had you in the spotlight on the hot seat earlier. We will start with CPRC. Alan, I believe, are you the only CPRC member here? Do you, I mean, we were prepared to update, maybe Jeff and Alan can help us with that.
we talked about last year. We know we have one thing.
Well, I think the big thing is the meeting location issue. So the CPRC was very excited about meeting out in the community, but they heard that from some folks that, you know, when you have just a visit, you go out to the community, that's great, but if you're just doing your regular business in the community and it's not focused on that community where you're having your meeting, it's not as good as it could be. So the plan was to do quarterly focused meetings in specific areas of the community where most of the meeting would not be taken up with just regular community business. It would be focused on that. Because of concerns about establishing a home base at the precinct, another building was offered. The Kelly Building, it's technically Southeast Precinct, but it's not completely all police, if that makes no sense. So it's a building that the CPRC will call its home base for meetings. on those non-quarterly focus events. Does that make sense? That's perfect, yeah. So I thought that was one of the big things.
Nice.
Yeah, that was good. Also, Jeff was instrumental in moving forward a brochure for CPRC. So CPRC has its own brochure coming out. Very nice. And then also the email I sent out to folks about the change to CPRC protocols. We already approved their protocols earlier. The change that they added was around attendance and adding a section about attendance. So we can bring that forward also. I don't think we have copies of it.
Yeah, well, I don't think we have copies of it. So is that, you mentioned that might be something we can vote on?
Yeah, I think we could vote
The
that
next
live if we
meeting?
wanted to.
Okay.
It's, you know, nothing that's pressing.
Well, why don't we do that since we
Sure.
don't have those
And
here?
Danita's on, sorry for that.
Right.
No, I
No, that's,
Brochure took up majority of that meeting.
And there are, and oh, do we know that, is it Sam? Sam is the new,
Right, that was vetted through here, though, right? Through the HRC.
He
Or,
needs-
no, the HRC needs to
that's-
vote on that.
we need to
I
vote on
do
that.
think so.
After he's confirmed
But
as
he
a
has to be
commissioner.
confirmed as a commissioner.
Right.
Okay.
Because see, we can't confirm him as a CPRC member of the HRC until he's a member of the HRC.
Okay.
I know we're talking a lot about process here tonight, but, so tell us how that process happened where Sam came on to be approved, ready to be approved through CPRC before he became approved through.
No,
the
he's
HRC?
not.
Okay.
He was mentioned as someone who would be a good fit. In the CPRC, well, I think you're right. Maybe the CPRC did say that once he was confirmed, he would be a good.
Yeah, my understanding of it is that there was a process, there was let's see, who's CPRC, I don't remember anything about
Steven.
Stevens, yeah.
So Stephen Manning, when he resigned from HRC, was a CPRC member, so his seat opened up on CPRC. So CPRC went through its nomination process to nominate an HRC member, and Sam was selected to be the new member.
Right, but the last time they did that, there was a notice, and other people, including me at that time, ended up doing interviews.
Yeah, and I
So
can't
there
answer
been
that, because I wasn't sure either, actually. I just
So I
remember
don't know
that.
if anything of, well, shoot.
I mean, it seems like they introduced him as the new member. So that's why I'm a little confused.
Well, that's, yeah, we're gonna have, maybe Anita has to do this.
Or Damon, I know, is involved in the CPRC nominations. So I can't answer that. I didn't know if there were others that applied or exactly how it went.
That's a really good question.
So what we probably need to do is make sure that the CPRC bylaws were followed in nominating Sam. And if not, we need to go back through the procedure to, if he's been nominated, then we need to go back through the procedure and through the
I
nominations
feel like I
process.
asked that of Damon, but I mean, if you don't remember if something hadn't been,
Actually, I do now remember
Okay.
that I received an email just to me from Damon, him asking if I was interested.
okay,
And I said no,
okay,
but I don't know anything beyond that about how that process went.
yeah. And I thought I asked him about that, and he basically said, yes, we went through the same process as before.
Yeah, it's just kind of the theme for us right now is, how do we get these things standardized and clear so we are transparent about it all.
Yep, and that's exactly right, and they're a subcommittee of the HRC, and we need to make sure that their bylaws have been followed, so.
There's also a new police bureau member of CPRC. It is
Chris Uehara.
Chris Uehara, and I don't know his rank. I'm not getting that. Captain Uehara. And so the police bureau members are selected by the police bureau and then brought to CPRC for nomination. And actually, I think that they're supposed to be approved through here also. I'm supposed to check. That's the new member, the new police bureau member of CPRC. Okay.
And you just gave, I'm sorry if I missed this, you just gave us a request to look at the bylaws changes.
Yeah, and so please look at that, we'll vote on in July, the protocols, yeah, I think that's what we're calling them.
And that reminds me, I apologize apologize, I want to jump back one step. I forgot to mention bylaws, HRC bylaws. That's something that we've been talking about as we've looked at the strategic plan recently. We have noticed both that the bylaws have not been updated since the adoption of the strategic plan and have not been updated since the Office of Equity and Human Rights was created. So the bylaws are officially out of date because they mention the Office of Human Relations. And so what we are intending to do is put together, Amy, you mentioned the ad hoc committee to, I forget exactly what the wording is, but it was the ad hoc committee that we decided to create to address things like bylaws.
It's on page 7 of the document that you handed out. It's so under our organizational structure piece of our strategic plan, it was the ad hoc committee that Amy mentioned. And it has several tasks there.
Now, part of, when we were working on the MOU, we were referring to the MOU team as that,
Oh, good point.
right?
Okay.
So it's like it started, we could call it that, I wouldn't complain, but then it did its ad hoc thing, we can add that to our bingo game, and,
Yeah, because that's
let's pick it up again.
But three down on that same page, create an ad hoc committee to align the human rights commission job description, commission bylaws, and commission operating procedures to effectively implement changes in
Yeah,
organizational
that's
structures.
what I'm saying.
But that refers, that create an ad hoc committee doesn't, I mean, I read that as saying a different committee than the one at the very top of the page saying establish the organization and operations ad hoc committee.
No, the MOU is actually in here as a separate. Yeah, in fact, it's a progress and measure and outcome, it's not an activity. If you go to the top of page 8, negotiate and maintain the annual memorandum of understanding with the office. So that's actually a measure of one of the events that would have taken place underneath the ad hoc committee.
So is the MOU committee the same as?
No,
As what?
as the committee the ad hoc committee to align human rights commissioner job description bylaws.
So under its organizational priority activities, where it refers multiple times, there's at least 3 times to creating an ad hoc committee.
I think it's separate.
Is that the same as the operations, organization and operations ad hoc committee, or are those separate committees?
I don't think it's clear whether they're separate or whether they're the same. I think that we can decide whether they're separate and whether they're the same. And if the people who engaged on those committees want to continue in that service, I think that is a possibility. From reading, and I'm actually reading the same thing you're reading, but I'm reading it in the strategic plan. There are different bullet points which suggests, I mean, if I was interpreting it, I would say that they're probably different ad hoc committees.
So what we're talking about is establishing an ad hoc process in which people volunteer to be a committee to address each of these issues as they come up. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah, for example, God forbid we have to replace Jeff, that ad hoc committee would show up to look again at the
Right.
job description.
Right.
So I think
And
some of
so-
it's just a language
Right.
too. Yeah.
It is, and so, as an executive committee in our meeting the other day, we were talking about how the bylaws would be a natural thing to update right away. We want to be working with current bylaws. And so we think that it would be a good idea to get that committee together immediately and to try to start working on bylaws, to propose amended bylaws, to propose at either the July or August meeting. I think probably it's more realistic that it would be the August meeting. And so we would like to, we talked about keeping the committee to 5 members or less, just to try to get it, and I don't think that'll be a problem. I don't, we'll have more than 5 people jumping up and down to participate, but anybody who is interested in participating in that committee, please let me know after the meeting today. If you're here, I'll also send out an email within 48 hours after this meeting to let anybody else know if they want to participate in that committee, and then we'll set up a meeting for anybody who is going to participate.
And that's that procedure operations committee, right?
Yes.
So they'll be looking at the bylaws, but also other procedural.
Well, at this time, this committee is going to be doing the bylaws.
Just the bylaws.
That's what they're going to be working on for this project.
Okay.
And that's, I mean, Amy, you winced, so do you?
No, that was thinking.
Okay. That's what we were thinking, because we think the bylaws are something that need to get changed right away. And then if people want to come in and out to do other projects, we think that makes sense. Especially because there's gonna be, this is a long-term project. People will be taking on other projects as we go.
Yeah, my expression was about the fact that there's been work done on procedures and structure, particularly by Ashley and I, that I would like to see inform the bylaws changes.
Oh, I think they will have to, yeah.
So somehow I want to
The
see
communication.
those two efforts aligned.
Well, I think that all of the committees will have to be aligned with the bylaws. I mean, everybody's gonna have to play by the same rules, so I think that's gonna be a natural fit. So, just wanted to mention that, because we were talking about the CPRC bylaws. I'm sorry to take us back in time to the strategic plan discussion. But, so anybody who wants to participate in that, please let me know, and I'll send out an email tomorrow for anybody who isn't here. So, housing rights, anything going on?
No, the Connecting Communities of Oregon, so what, leadership isn't the right word, but there's a group from the Connecting Communities of Oregon next week to discuss the next steps with the IZ bill. I have asked, but have not received any further word on the Section 8 bill. The last update I got on it is that it's in the House Ways and Means Committee. But that's been a couple weeks. And I also get, I mean, I'm sure several of you do, but Speaker Kotek's weekly or bi-weekly legislative updates, and she hasn't mentioned anything about it.
And we would expect that to happen in the next 2 weeks.
I mean, if it's
If it's gonna happen.
Yeah. So I don't know if that means it stalls or if this is just the way things happen. Because I haven't heard anything about movement on the Senate side either, so.
On the Section 8 bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, because the House does their thing and then whatever they do has to go to the Senate. And then if they disagree on something, then they work that out. And there's not much time left.
Well, I hate to have you play prognosticator, but can you tell us, what does the future look like for this? If it is stalled completely, do we wait?
Section 8?
Yeah, do we wait another year? Does it ever come up again?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about changing state law, we have to wait till the next session, which I guess they're gonna have a special session in 2014. So that would be the next opportunity, but the rules, which are already weird when it's a regular session, are even weirder when it's a special session.
I guess that's what I'm asking, is it even possible that that can get added into a special?
If there's a representative who's willing to use, because I think there's a limit on the number of bills that representatives can introduce in the special session. I don't, I have no indication from the speaker whether she would be, she would use her slot to do that.
Is there a strategy to regather and reboot up for not that, but another better run?
I mean, no, not that I'm aware of. I imagine at this meeting for Connecting Communities of Oregon, this will be part of what we discuss. The bulk of our conversation is going to focus on the inclusionary zoning bill, but I intend to ask about the Section 8 bill since there's been no word on it. But what I would say for us, that we may want to begin thinking about if the Section 8 bill fails, it is mounting an effort to get Section 8 protected in the city of Portland.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Do we jump to that after the session?
That would be my recommendation.
And especially in light of the new commissioner in charge, Bureau assignment on housing.
And that's the other piece of news, not necessarily from the task force, but the Bureau of Housing is now under Dan Salzman. But I don't know, I mean, because the Housing Bureau doesn't deal with ordinances on housing, so I don't know
what the relationship is.
Well, that Dan Salzman would have any more say than any other commissioner on this kind of an ordinance.
Would it be, it seems like there's been support from City Hall, at least on Section 8.
Yes.
And so Martha Pellegrino's been involved in that support, right,
Yeah.
as the city's head lobbyist. Would it be worth interfacing with Martha about seeing if there is, and if it's worth trying to push something on the state level and trying to find a senator? Is it a senator or a?
For the special session?
No, yeah, for the special session.
I mean, I think the answer to your question is yes, but I think we need to wait until the session ends and see where all the dead bodies are. And then we can develop a strategy. I mean, if it fails, you know, whether it's a special session or 2015's regular session or whatever, I mean, this issue should continue to come up until we get it right. But my recommendation would be in the interim period, and possibly even to forego putting efforts into a special session, but to focus on what the city council can do to address this issue. So that's
Okay. Well,
that's my proselyte.
I would say, from an organizing of HRC standpoint, we're gonna hopefully have a liaison in Commissioner Saltzman's office here pretty soon. And also, the policy committee will be involved, hopefully, in any advocacy effort we have. So if we can kind of hopefully team up and use those resources to make that push if we need to.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Anything else from Housing Rights? Okay. Human Trafficking Task Force, I don't really have much of an update. It's kind of status quo right now. We did have a really productive meeting with Ben Harper at the county, and we are actually getting a physical map started, and so that's really exciting. It's gone from theoretical to having an actual tangible product here. And so it's the map of communities who are at risk for human trafficking, and so it's a demographic map essentially based on census data and other polling data. And we're pulling data from all over the place, all different kinds of studies to try to get a sense of where our most at-risk communities are, so that we can actually then get our feet on the ground and try to start making some appropriate interactions with those community leaders, so that we can learn then about the best way to educate those populations about the fact that there is help out there, what to do, how to get it, and how not to be afraid that law enforcement's going to come pounding at your door. So that's the goal.
Is that going to be aligned with any source of data about, for lack of knowing the terminology, bus, origins of bus in the metro area? Do we know that they're happening in a certain area of the city?
We do know that they're happening in a certain area of the city. You mean trafficking busts?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, well, there aren't that many happening. That's what we're trying to fix.
Right.
And so, yeah, we know where the trafficking busts are happening, but that's not really giving us a very good idea, because usually these people aren't in their home communities when they're being trafficked. And so they're either being taken out of those communities or just, displaced somewhere, and being displaced somewhere. But yeah, we have a pretty good idea, or we do know where the busts are happening, because one of our members of the Human Trafficking Task Force is Keith Bickford, who's the county sheriff who's in charge of busking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's involved in every one of them.
Right, yeah. There isn't a trafficking case that goes through this county that Keith doesn't put it on, so. But yeah, that's some of the data that I'm sure is being relied on by Ben. We're just kind of filtering everything we have to Ben at this point and trying to get something on the map. So that's really it for HTTF communications. Jeff?
The new website is up, as we discussed. If you want to take a look at it, let me know if there's anything we need to add to it. Does anyone have any photos of HRC not in this room? All the photos that I have are of everybody sitting around this table. Does that make sense? I mean, like,
That's what I was wondering about.
yeah. Like, do you guys ever go out?
You can have Facebook photos.
No, we can't have a
Posted
quorum.
on there, way back.
What about the photos from when we did the?
Human Rights Award?
Terry Cross?
Cherry Cross. There were a lot, those were posted, there were a lot of photos from that.
Well, if someone could send me.
I don't know if you'll be able to get your hands on these, but I know Universe joined, Emily was taking pictures of us separately and just like,
She did that.
and I don't know if we'd be able to find, because she had a camera, so.
She uploaded many of those to the Facebook page, I
Oh, yeah?
thought, but you're right, she was taking like individual shots.
You could contact.
She was our
her husband
photographer, yeah.
and ask her husband, we can have his number.
Okay, well, if anyone else has any,
I can send you my high school photos.
20 years ago?
Yeah, my glamour shots.
But yeah, no, the website's up. I'll send out the specific link that you can give to people that will go just right to the Human Rights Commission site. But even if they do get there, you have your big tab right there. You go to the screen and get to it, so.
Well, thank you very much for doing that.
Thanks. Jeff, is there anything else that, as far as communication plan wise for the commission, that we should be moving ahead now next on?
Send bios.
I mean, just.
Well, yeah, thanks, Dale. If we want to have a section of bios for the commission, a couple of folks have sent me their bios and photos. So that's specifically for the website. As far as other communications issues, I think there will be some opportunities for that coming up with roundtable.
Okay.
And opportunities for pictures outside of this room.
That'd be nice.
But yeah, I mean, it's, I think we really need to figure out different ways to make sure that we're telling the story of this mission and its work.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, Jeff, not in the next 12 months, but is there value to us, the commissioner, taking a turn each month or quarter to write a press release or an opinion piece and see if you can fit that into a media release schedule over 12 months?
Well, I mean, it's something that has to be newsworthy.
Yeah.
It has to be, you know, I mean, if it's a press release, yeah, we just have to make sure that it's something that,
I think,
usually.
yeah, I think ideally those, we would increase those coming up as issues arise in the community. And I think we're working on getting into a system and habit of being able to move when something arises into a press release.
Now, tell me if this addresses what you were asking too. We have the capability of having a blog on the website, on specifically the Human Rights Commission as well. So if commissioners are interested in doing that, all your free time you have, then, you know, that's something we can set up easily. It would just have to be something that's updated, you know, once you start it, you have to kind of keep it up. But,
And
yeah.
you have all this time since you can update it daily anyway, right?
I didn't put that in the notes. That's the great thing about taking notes, I don't put that in. Oh, wait, it's on video. So, yeah, so, I mean, but if you, I think we'll start looking at specific things. I think it would be nice to have kind of an overview video of the Human Rights Commission. I don't know if you've seen any of the videos we've done, that I've done with Polo's work.
Is it on the website?
It's on the website. So, we have our own YouTube channel now for the office.
Wow.
Doing videos.
Also, it's about Newport Learners.
Pardon?
The Newport Learners program?
Yeah, there are a couple of ones on there that.
That's great.
Anyway,
Oh, maybe
So-
we should shoot some videos around table.
we could. Oh, you know, like a 2-minute kind of a news story on the roundtable with a couple of interviews, I think would be good. I'll send out the links to the videos that we've done, just so you can see what style we can do and.
Yeah, I'd only caution about the roundtables, because some of the feedback I've heard, would repeat these things.
People being afraid.
Not afraid, but hesitant, so let's build trust, and if we do,
Right.
let's make sure they're buying in and it's separate from the actual
That's good.
round table.
Afterwards.
It's good work. It's good, good thing to
Yeah,
consider.
just some of that's, you know, let's build trust, so.
And we should post signs that there'll be pictures taken
Yeah.
at the entrance, so people know that.
Well, I think you should post a release.
Yeah, and there's
Ask
have
people for a
to,
release at the beginning,
they're
to
gonna
us,
sign.
they're okay.
Okay.
We're gonna have everybody, like if I take shots of things going on, we're gonna have a release. for
Can I
everybody.
make a
Everybody gets that.
suggestion for that? What I've seen happen before is there's notices, but please let the camera people know if you don't want to do it.
What you can do is make it, you can give them some kind of identifier that says, please wear it, if you do not want to appear in photos, please wear this button or something. Or
Right
put-
here.
Yeah, and then that way, you know, it's not-
The Scarlet
Anyway.
from photographs.
Yeah,
But I think John's point is a good one around potentially setting up an editorial calendar, either for blogging or, 'cause there are events we know that we might want to try to generally be around like Human Rights Day.
I would just, yeah.
Yeah,
Don't
no,
have any
absolutely.
specific goal, I just know that, you know, it's, with your point of telling the story. Telling the story means you have to talk a lot, though. I think we are getting a good process, but we're getting a good process about reactionary responses. And it's sometimes nice to have canned, less reactionary responses in your hip pocket community content, though. So I think there's just plenty of stories to tell in the community, too, that we could do. HRC's story doesn't always have to be about us and our committee, it could be about who we're doing work for, too. So.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it would be great too, since a number of times we go out in the community and we attend luncheons or dinners or banquets, that we have pictures taken at those banquets and to share those, to show that we're out there in the community.
Yeah, well, there's, and post them up on Facebook right away.
Yeah.
and-
But I've been in your
Good to see
seat,
everyone.
I've been in your seat too before, so I know about the newsworthiness of anything. So
Right.
I don't think there needs to be any measurement against it either. So.
And speaking of getting out in the community, you know, and while we're talking about communications, that has been a criticism of us not getting out, not getting ourselves out there. And both for communications purposes, visibility purposes, but also discovery purposes, and making the community feel like we want to be out there and actually engaging with them.
Well, the truth is, you are out there, and we just need to document it as well. So-
Well, but also I think that, I know that we talked about doing out meetings a little bit more, and I know that Myra was somebody that we talked about that with, and she has been very, very active, even though she hasn't been able to be here because of her school schedule recently, but if that's something that we should be talking to her about.
Yeah, and that can be just, that was kind of something that we assumed that we would do as a CDC committee, but that doesn't mean anybody can't help us, you know, throw suggestions our way or, you know, facilitate that.
Just one thing about that, though, if you're gonna, you know, like this meeting here, if you go back and look at the tape, it's all about business stuff, about procedure and all this kind of stuff. If you go out in the community and like, hey, we're here, we had a lot more negative complaints for CPRC from the last venue where we met. The people that were invited to go there because they said, hey, this committee is gonna be there. And they said, this committee didn't talk about anything that had anything to do with us.
Right, well, I think
So-
we learned that lesson
Right.
from CPRC,
So
and we
just-
actually, when we do go out there, we are mindful of that, and
Yeah,
actually
and
give
you-
public comment first.
And for this group to do its business, it has to be a public meeting. So I don't know how you would figure out how to do your business and then, to conduct your business and then, and then go to a community, for your meeting and then.
Well, I don't know, sure, what kind of, we've done this, and I hadn't heard that we got negative feedback on it. I mean, we met at NEA, and so what we did is we incorporated the organization or the community that we were meeting, where we were meeting at their space as part of the agenda, so they would do a presentation on their work.
That's what I'm saying, that needs to happen.
Yeah, and that's what we.
Many
that's what we
is a
did.
good
It was
example.
before you were
But
here, we
even
did
the
that a
Oregon,
couple times, so it worked out well.
Yeah,
What was that place we did?
Oregon Holocaust Museum.
So that one, and then the other one.
Minority business,
Yeah.
minority entrepreneurs.
Awami.
Yeah,
They did a presentation.
Well, I think we're gonna have that opportunity coming out of the roundtable.
yeah, and that's
We
true.
work off of that relationship and say, can we do a co-commission board or directors meeting and incorporate each other? So that we can do a little programming too, that we can introduce ourselves, they can introduce themselves, and then.
I think a good thing to do is to ask the community how they would like for that to occur.
Yeah.
Rather than us dictating this is how it's going to occur. We represent the public and we need to ask them what is the best way to represent them as opposed to us saying this is how we're going to do it. Because coming down in that manner seems very elitist. And I think that we need to kind of come at it a different way. Just some thoughts.
Well, I do want to get to public comment if anybody is going to do it. Nobody has, the only person that signed up was Lamont, and she has gone, so.
Awesome.
Okay, well, We got you. I just wanted to give a quick City Hall liaison update. We have 4 volunteers to be City Hall liaisons. I've spoken,
Who are they?
Amy, Ashley, John, and myself. We are just going to have a meeting among the 4 of us about how the City Hall assignments are going to be distributed. And then by next month, we'll have, I don't think there's any reason we won't have the liaisons in place, and hopefully already scheduling our introductions and all that. So that's gonna be really good. I've had some really positive feedback from our city commissioners, staffs about doing that, and so we should be moving forward with that, and I think that'll be really helpful. Linda and Sarah, would either of you like to say anything today? Or?
I'm just impressed at the hard work that goes into the infrastructure to make this all a go. When I'm seeing all the work that's been, and the groundwork that's been laid, the patience that it takes to make a really viable organization, I'm impressed with that. I see a lot of hours of work.
Well, thanks for volunteering your time. Mike?
I have nothing.
Okay. We have an announcement period. Anybody have anything for us?
No, you're not.
What? The meeting's over.
I know what you're gonna say.
And, okay, thanks everybody. As long
Too
as-
bad, so sad. I have an announcement. I'm announcing that I'm leaving the HRC.
We're gonna vote.
No.
That's gonna go to the bylaw.
So how long have I been on the HRC now?
Since the beginning,
Well, how long has it been this time?
November 2008.
Oh,
Has it been 2008?
Day
See,
after-
that's almost 5 years.
The day after.
almost.
Almost 5 years. You know, that's a long time. So I've decided that I need to move to rest. And so I'm going to leave, but I'm going to leave with some comments, because I think it's important that I state how I am. And so I'm on the nominating committee, so I'm not going to leave until after I meet with the nominating, so I won't be at the next meeting.
You will not be at the next.
I will not be at the next meeting. Do I need to be there in order for us to announce who's replacing me or something?
I think so.
Okay, all right, so I will meet with the nominating committee though, so that we get new people nominated. But these are just some things that I've thought about with HRC and what I'm feeling. I really want to encourage the HRC to get out and meet in the community. This is something I've been harping on since I joined. For 5 years, I've been harping on that, and so we're finally having a community roundtable 5 years down the road. And I feel encouraged knowing that Myra Diallo and Amy are on that committee and that they're gonna push that forward. But these are just some thoughts that I have. I feel like we're heavy on process. When I came in here, I thought, Jesus, if somebody was to hear this, to watch the tape, we're really heavy on process. It doesn't, I thought, how many lawyers are sitting at this table? I know there's 2. Are you an attorney too?
No, I just act like one.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it just feels very structured and formal, and I know that there's a certain amount of that has to go on. And I mean, I love you, but, attorneys talk a certain way. And I think that it's real important that we do the KISS thing, keep it simple, stupid, for those of us who are new to the process and want to join into the process. Because if you come in and there's a lot of process talk, it's intimidating. I mean, I'm a part of the HRC and I haven't been here for a few months, and I came in and I'm sitting here and I'm going, shh, thinking, what are we talking about? How do you jump into this conversation? So, I mean, I don't know how you, it is, quote, a business process. I don't know how you do that and not sound process-oriented. So, I think that that's a challenge for it. That's something I want to applaud and keep more action, continued action going, more of the public forums, getting the community involved as much as possible so that we truly do represent the community, because one of the concerns that I had from the very beginning is that we operated in a vacuum. And so we're much more oriented toward being out there in the public, and I just feel like we're on the cusp of really making that happen. And by doing that, having the public meetings, inviting organizations to come, having the meetings in various sectors of the community. Coming downtown is a real turnoff to a lot of people. It's overwhelming, and especially for people of color. I mean, if you walk downtown, how many people of color are downtown? Not a whole lot. And I mean, there are people of color here in the community, even though gentrification has occurred, but you don't see them downtown. And so I think that that's, you see a certain kind of people downtown. And I think that we need to get out into the community so we know what's going on and invite the organizations, once we get our public partners going, then have them invite the public to come to the meetings. But at the same time, let people know, hey, we're a volunteer commission and we don't have a lot of power, but if you imbue us with power by your showing up, then we can go to the city council, we can make a report. We can have city council looking at our website, not us looking at theirs. So I think that's real important. I'd like to encourage the HRC to continue to have diversity, ethnic diversity. I think that's really, really important. Gender diversity, age diversity. This was one of the things that Damon pointed out. He goes, you can't leave, because if you leave, Hector's gone now, all the old folks are leaving. And so, I mean, I think that there's, he didn't say that.
Okay.
He didn't say that.
That's why David's not here, because he's dead.
See, and I even pulled out my gray hair for the occasion, so you can see that I do have this diversity here. But I think that it's really important to have that variation in age and to continue. One of the reasons I wanted Diallo on here so badly was because I think it's important for us to mentor leadership, to be bringing along young people that we are mentoring and helping to get involved in what's going on, and to have diversity of occupations, students, teachers, whoever, just a lot of diversity so that we get a real different point of view, and to continue to educate the community, to educate ourselves about topics, and just be involved as much as possible. I did say that I would continue to kind of informally work with the CDC folks. Y'all get on my nervous though. But I said I would continue to work with them kind of informally, giving them a little feedback and stuff, because I think that it's important that we do have different points of view. I mean, when you find people who have a point of view or some experience that it can, sometimes we don't even think we have input that is important. And when I sit and I kind of step outside of myself and listen to the meetings we have, there are little tidbits that I contribute that do make a major difference in what we're doing. So, so anyway, I just wanted to say I've enjoyed being on the Human Rights Commission. And I'm not leaving for any agenda other than I was sick and now I'm just tired. So that's kind of where I am, and getting more involved in race talks. And I would like, one of the things I'm going to be turning my attention to is making Race Talk its own 501c3, and making having you guys be a sponsor, because I really want the Human Rights Commission to sponsor and I'll make sure that it's none of that money goes for my salary.
Well, now it can.
No, that's one of the things we talked about before, and Alan and I talked about, is we want to be really careful about doing that, because you don't want to seem that there's any impropriety with having funding for a present or former Human Rights Commissioner, and I really feel that that's important. You don't want to, it's like, oh, there's nepotism going on there. I think that Race Talks is an important program and stands on its own, so that money can go to program. And so I feel that that's a real important thing, but I think it's important that the Human Rights Commission sponsor Race Talks so that is seen as something that you're involved with. So That being said, thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you. You have the only one here who's served with you this whole time.
Yeah.
And it has been a true immense pleasure.
Oh,
to do so.
well, I love you too. You know that. So,
Thank you so much. You'll definitely be missed. And
especially
somebody
the
that-
last 6 months, huh?
Well, we always knew, I always could hear your voice. You've been a good mentor and have always provided a really valuable voice as long as I've been around, and I will definitely miss you being here. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Mike. And we are adjourned.